Special greetings to Chancellor Rose Patton, President Merritt Gertler, and Dean Trevor Young. Mr. President, thank you for those kind words, and Madam Chancellor, thank you so much for this honor. I want to begin by acknowledging my deep gratitude for the University of Toronto for inviting me to graduate with these outstanding students who are receiving degrees or diplomas from the Faculty of Medicine. This is yet another debt I owe this extraordinary institution. I'm also humbled and honored to share the platform with so many distinguished individuals, friends, and colleagues. And to the graduating classes, those who, unlike me, really earned their degrees or diplomas, may I say what a privilege it is to join you and your family members, friends, fans, and supporters on this special day. I know that some of today's graduates are veterans of previous convocations. So am I, about 150 of them as Dean of Medicine and President. But the only time I actually came on this stage to receive a degree before today was from the University of Toronto 41 years ago, a long time. I have a confession to make. I don't remember anyone who was on stage except the Associate Dean for Student Affairs who was footing us. And I have no recollection whatsoever of anything that any speaker said that day. So given that I am a forgettable and fake graduate, these remarks will be brief. First, let's state the obvious. This is a troubled time in the history of our species. Polarized politics, the degradation of civil discourse, concentration of wealth, accelerating climate change, and especially relevant to today's graduating classes, a rising tide of popular fallacies about health and illness, evident in the many nations where we see an alarming recurrence of epidemics of measles and other preventable communicable diseases. It's all pretty unsettling and unsettled. And I expect, moreover, that some of today's graduates will have encountered or will encounter curmudgeons from my generation who may regale you with stories of how great medicine and healthcare were back in the good old days. Don't believe a word of it. You are entering the world of healthcare in a period of accelerating change that I firmly believe will be at once challenging and revolutionary in the very best sense of that word. Just wind the clock backward to 1978, my graduation year. The first cell phone wasn't even invented until 1979. Personal computers didn't gain any serious following until the mid-1980s. There was essentially no internet and certainly no World Wide Web. And in the world of biological science, although gene splicing had been invented in 1973, the idea of sequencing the whole genome was almost inconceivable. CAT scanning had taken hold, but magnetic resonance imaging was still in its infancy, and the interpretation of those images was primitive by today's standards. The potential of stem cells was only dimly understood. Most drugs came from painstaking medicinal chemistry, and biological agents were few and far between. Indeed, when then US President Richard Nixon committed large sums of public money to a huge war on cancer in the 1970s, science simply wasn't up to the job, and the results were a crushing disappointment. Even a dozen or so years ago, I used to refer in public addresses to the 4 Ps of modern healthcare: poking, prodding, plumbing, and palliation. Not very appealing. Yet by 2015, a group of British experts writing in The Lancet foresaw the emergence, by coincidence, of a very different type of 4P medicine, one they described as predictive, preemptive, personalized, and participatory. Quite an upgrade. Think about it. There are downsides to the digital deluge, which brings with it anti-vaccination drivel and promotion of quackery of all kinds. But your generation has more health information at its fingertips in a few seconds than most of us in 1978 could have ever have imagined accessing in a lifetime of practice or research. Meanwhile, the revolution in biotechnology that began in the 1980s has, if anything, accelerated. In your professional lifetimes, the convergence of information technology with advances in bioscience and artificial intelligence will profoundly transform the processes and outcomes of healthcare. Your generation will use tissue engineering and stem cell technology to grow personalized spare parts, transplants, artificial joints, chronic dialysis, they'll all disappear. With gene editing based on CRISPR-Cas9 technology, many scourges, not least the hereditary anemias, will be reversed in utero or shortly after birth. And every discipline that relies heavily on interpretation of imaging will undergo dramatic changes as a result of the mass deployment of pattern recognition software. It won't all be smooth sailing. There will be thorny, ethical, legal, and social issues to untangle, challenges with access and affordability to surmount, and a real risk that we could lose sight of the evergreen importance of investing in public health protection or addressing the broad social determinants of health and illness. But notwithstanding those challenges ahead, and much as I have loved being part of the world of healthcare during most of my 41 years since graduation, I stand here slightly envious of each of you and very excited of what lies ahead in the next 41 years for today's graduates. You are indeed fortunate. Now, by tradition, the fake graduate is supposed to give some advice to the real graduates. And I have 5 quick points I'd like to share. First, please remember that it was advances in science and technology that made you meaningfully better than your counterparts in my generation. Whatever your discipline, whatever your practice setting, please be vocal champions for basic and applied health research for the rest of your lives. That's a gift you can give the next generation. Second, whatever you end up doing in the health realm, please be relentless advocates for positive change. Press tirelessly for fairness and accessibility, and for higher quality and safer care. The hard fact is that healthcare systems everywhere are struggling to keep pace with the demographic and technological changes that have occurred over the last 25 years. And that, I'm sorry to say, is very much the case right across this wonderful country of ours. Third, even if you can't always make the healthcare system better, you can make yourself better. Keep learning and never stop. And please don't rule out retooling to add new skills or even making a mid-career change to avoid burnout and to reinvigorate the idealism that I know is in each and every one of you today. Fourth, the more powerful that technology becomes, the more vital it is for every health professional to avoid construing the patient as a disembodied digital entity with a disease. Please focus on illness as the experience of a fellow traveler on this planet. By leavening expertise with empathy, you will help patients and their loved ones construct a narrative in which they can locate all that is happening to them in a very vulnerable and stressful time. And last, healthcare, like everything else in this life, is ultimately a team sport. It is increasingly collaborative and multidisciplinary and multi-professional. And yes, individual accountability and leadership still matter a lot, but the self-styled solo geniuses don't fare very well in the health realm. Your prospects for success, your resilience in the face of setbacks, your career trajectory, your happiness, and your life's legacy all depend on who you choose as traveling companions in the decades ahead and how well you work with those companions that you did not choose, and especially the ones you would never have chosen. In closing, fellow graduates, along with a very fine education and today's degree or diploma from this truly great university, you have the most precious asset of all, the gift of time, with boundless possibilities to make a positive difference in the world as your careers and lives unfold in the decades ahead. Congratulations and warmest wishes for great happiness and every success. And again, thank you for letting me share your special day.